Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kim Jacobs Show. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Kim Jacobs Show. It is my honor to have Ms. Veronica J Woodard here in the studio with me. Welcome, Veronica.
Hello there, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. So glad to have you here with me today. Now, listen, everyone, as you guys come into the studio, you know the drill. Go ahead and grab your virtual seats. Make sure you share today's broadcast with your friends, your family, your coworkers. Let people know that today we're going to be talking about women in broadcasting. And it's so exciting. And this woman's story is one that you definitely don't want to miss. She's going to take us on a journey of where she's been and where she is today and how this all culminated. So get ready to type your comments, share any positive words of encouragement with my guests, ask questions. A lot of times people have a lot of questions, and this is a good time for you to get those questions answered. So make sure you go ahead and get prepared. Veronica, this is also a time for you to be able to share it with your friends and family. So you and I are friends, I think, on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So you can take a moment and share it with your friends as well.
Okay.
All right. Let me move myself for 1 second.
How do you do that? Because
Oh, don't worry about it if it's you want to start doing it now. I should have said that before. No, it's right on my Facebook page. You actually just take it and hit share.
I'm on an iPad. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, don't worry about that. Okay. Then we just your friends will chime in later. How about that? That's fair, right? Okay. So anyway, let me go ahead and introduce my special guest today. Ms. Veronica J Woodard is a veteran of the United States Navy, an advocate for social injustice, economic development, and helping people have a better quality of life. That is what is she's passionate about. She is the host of The Lobbyist, which is a national talk show, and you definitely will learn a lot more about her journey. So it's my pleasure to have you, Veronica, here on the Kim Jacobs Show today.
Okay, Kim, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and I love the model, being able to express and explore opportunities and allow people to know a little bit about what I do and what your audience does and what you do. I think it's awesome. I think it's great, and it's much needed, especially right now. We need a really great positive platform.
Yes. We need all the positivity that we can get infused
Yes.
into our veins because there's so much happening in the world today.
Yes.
And people a lot of people are discouraged on this journey. So where do you want to take us? Take us on a journey with Veronica. We don't have any scripted questions, everyone. So if you're like, ask those questions, Kim, that's not what's happening here. We're just having a conversation with you today for people to get a chance to learn more about you, Veronica, and what you want the world to know.
Okay. Well, the reason why, first of all, I am a veteran, and I believe it started there.
Okay.
Being in the Navy, I enjoyed being in the military. I went in my early 20s, and I enjoyed it. I realized that it was an organization of structure, which I had that growing up in a two-parent home because my father was a pastor and he was very structured. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Old school
You know.
Mississippi style structure, you know. And
Yeah.
so when I went into the military, I was a little disappointed because I overheard my first class petty officer tell another first class petty officer while looking at me that he was tired of doing nigger work. And I'm like, it crushed me because when you're in basic training, they tell you everybody is blue, everybody is green.
Right.
And so when that happened to me, I'm like, it shocked me because I'm like, you put us in basic training for 6 weeks.
Right.
Put in our mind that we're all equal and we're all like each other because we're supposed to defend one another. And then once you're out of basic training and you go to your assignment, and I hear this, I was crushed, and it totally put me in a mental funk, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to the XO, and finally at the time I was going through a divorce, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take the single parent out, because if you're a single parent, you have the choice to either sign your rights over, custodial rights over to the absent parent or to
Right.
a relative, or you could take the out. So I'm like, you know what? I've done 3 years. I'm getting ready to have, one more year, I'll be four. I'm just going to go ahead and take the out. And I did. And I took the out and I forgot all about it. I
Hmm.
forgot that I'd received benefits. I forgot everything. And I was in California, which is how I got my start in broadcast. And I was attending a seminar. And the military recruiters are always trying to recruit you. And the guy was like, "Hey, you need to be in the Navy." I'm like,
Right.
"I've already been in the Navy. And let me tell you what happened. I forgot all about that, Kim. And let me tell you how God works. It wasn't until 2017. I've owned 3 homes and forgot I had the VA loan and all of that. It
Oh,
was
wow.
2017. I get a call from the Decatur VA here in Georgia. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have a case that was filed back in maybe about 4 or 5 years ago when I was in California. And we need to talk to you about it because certain racial tensions have been happening on the base, and we need to hear what your opinion is. So they sent me to do all these psychological evaluations. And they
Wow.
came back and was like, okay, well, this certainly shouldn't have happened to you. So this is what the next step is.
Hmm.
And through that, I saw that there is a need for people to understand what it's like to be discriminated against, what it's like to have derogatory names
Right.
called to your face, whether directly or indirectly.
Right.
And what does that do as far as the inside man? How does that make you feel?
That's good.
And so I took all of that and I went through the process, and and they was like, well, we're going to give you therapy, we're going to give you this. And I did not realize how that really affected me until I started going to therapy.
And now this is just from you overhearing.
Yes. And
So,
because
because I want to make sure that everybody that's watching, you're coming in right now. Some of you, we're talking today with Veronica J Woodard, and she's going to share her story about how she has now this broadcasting network owner, but she's taking you back on her story being in the United States Navy and overhearing a derogatory comment, which had the N word involved in it. And so she is sharing her experience. So if you're just joining, that's what's happening right now. So this is just straight overhearing it. They didn't say it
but
directly. Uh-huh.
looking at me when he said it, and we were like within an arm's distance. If I wanted
Okay.
to stretch my arm out, I would have been able to touch them. And
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
he looked directly at me when he said it. And I'm in my 20s, I think, and I'm like, I just got a basic training like maybe a year or two ago, when they
Right.
basic training is so intense that it almost reprograms you to
Yeah.
think differently, to act differently, to care differently, to love differently. And then when I heard that comment, it just really crushed me on the inside. I'm like, I can't do this, because growing up in Tennessee, you know, you're not Tennessee's a pretty good state. I won't move back there though, but it is a pretty, it is a pretty good state. You don't have that. And coming from, my parents didn't teach us that way.
Right.
So I'm like, wow, okay. So anyway, here in Georgia, they doing the therapy, and I realized that this really crushed me. It really hurt me. And I even told both of my daughters, I'm like, I have 3 daughters, and both of them went in the military. One did Army, the other one did the Navy. And my youngest daughter is allergic to everything, so she wasn't able to go. And I'm like, darn, I wish she was able. But anyway, it really did affect me mentally. And so when I
Okay.
started going to therapy, and my therapist said, fuel that energy, because this is the
That's right.
second time I've been able to tell the story without being in tears. He said, fuel the energy and move it forward into what you want life to be for yourself and for others.
Wow.
Then I remembered when I was in California, which is how I got my start in broadcasting. I hosted a a talk show called Say Something America Black on LA Talk Live. And then
Oh, nice.
always an independent producer for some of the low power television stations out there. So I'm like, okay, I got a creative mind with all the garbage in it and all the hurt and pain. I
Right.
need to put it out there.
That's right.
When I
What
started, when I started going to therapy, it led me on the path into where I am now.
Wow. Okay. So you that fueling of that disappointment, that
Yes,
anger, that like utter shock that somebody would be saying this to you after you are now preparing to serve your country in this
yes,
capacity just kind of knocked you off your rocker,
it
basically. And
it
it's like, okay, I got to be doing something better in life to
yes.
be able to make a difference. So now all of that is bottled up inside of you
Hmm.
and it's fueled you to do what, as your manager kind of shared with you? Take that energy, that passion, and make something of it. What did you make of it?
He did. So I've always been a creator, and God has blessed me with an awesome gift of I have a lot of intuition. So I can kind of sense things before they happen,
Mm-hmm.
see them before they happen. But I've always been very creative. I love laughter, I love comedy, but I also really love truth more than anything. And so the pain that I was feeling was like, man, I can't believe this. So I started with that first show called Say Something America Black. And that was around when the incident happened with Trayvon Martin.
Right, right.
Yeah, and so on LA Talk Live, I had a broad audience of all different types of ethnicities because you have that out there in California. And I was just hearing the pain of the people, not just African American people,
Right.
Caucasian people, talking about, well, black people discriminated against me. And you're thinking, well, how did they do that? And then when they share their story, you're like, well, it did happen to you. And then I would hear from the Latino community. And
Mm,
I'm like, well, you know what? We all share in the same
that's
despair.
right.
We can't make people change their heart. The only thing we can do is empty the toxins out of ours. And we could do that in a form of writing or saying, okay, well, you said you're tired of doing nigger work. Well, you're not going to be tired because I'm getting ready to show you what I could do. And that's how I ended up going into television. So while I was producing these independent television programs, and it'd be something like a talk show. We produced a show called Driston's Run. It was for teenagers.
Okay.
And let's see, I've been on Trinity several times.
Yeah.
And so these gentlemen that owned several satellites, and they were like, you know what, Veronica, you need to have your own channel. And this was back in 2011. I was
Okay.
still in California. And they kept saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, but you can't see the vision. I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
All
Les
I was,
Brown, let me say that. Les Brown actually says that sometimes it's hard for you to see the picture when you are formally in the frame. So you can't
yeah,
look outside of the frame and see yourself. Oh, that's from the outside perspective. So people get a chance to see your gifts and your talents. And hence that's what these gentlemen did and saw that gift in you, which is a
yeah.
blessing.
And they kept saying that. And, every 6 months I'm on the phone, wasting their time, having a
Please.
long, extensive conversation with them. And then at the end of the conversation, they'll say, are you ready to move forward? And I'm like, no, not yet. And, being in sales, it's like, okay, I'm wasting their time. I don't want them to stop talking to me.
Right, right.
Because when you're in sales, you're like, hey, I need you to sign on the paperwork right now. I'm not coming back over here until you're ready to sign the deal. But they just kept talking, and then they would say, well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you, talk to Neil. So I would talk to
Talk
Neil.
to the
He's
next person.
and then in 2011, which is a very significant year because that is the year my father passed away. I
Oh,
said to them, I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I said, I'm going to do it. I don't have $50,000, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to call you back. So in 2011, that was the year my father passed away. And it was still in my mind. But when God gives us something,
yeah.
it might not be for right now.
Mhm.
It might be for later on down the road because you
That's
have things you have to clear up. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And then I was trying to decide too, because my girls were homeschooled, even though one had already went off to the military.
right.
It's like, okay, now how am I going to do this? And I have two children, and I
Right.
homeschooling them, and I'm living in California, and I was always very protective and sheltered of my girls because
Right.
you're in California, you don't have any family there, you're just not going to take the child and leave them, even though they may have been 12 or 13,
Right, right.
and leave them.
That's right. But that's a good mommy. That's why. So you were trying to put your priorities in place. This whole show is about how people balance different aspects of their lives. And I provide guests like yourself that can touch on something that can connect with them, whether it's from the cradle to grave and even beyond. It's something that my guest talks about helps those that are watching.
Wow. Well,
And so you're talking from a single parent perspective as
yeah,
I'm hearing you. That
yeah,
that was important, that you didn't just say, okay, my dream is so much more important than me being able to provide my children with what they need. So
right. And I was not about to do that. And so I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to keep producing. And I went to a low powered station in Rialto,
mhm.
California. And
Okay.
it was like, well, just send us the content. And so I would get a crew together and we would do the content and send it to the station. And so I got an email from the ABFF. Now, this was the game changer. Let me tell you, when God wants to change your plans, He changes them.
That's
I
right.
got an email from the ABFF, which is the American Black Film Festival.
Okay.
And they said, Veronica, we're requesting you to be the official red carpet hostess at the Celebrity Bowling Celebrity Gala. Is it something you would be
Wonderful.
interested in? I'm thinking, yeah,
Of course. Yes. Yes, most definitely. Can
I'm
you see
like, okay.
Veronica over there? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm thinking, how did they hear about me? I'm all the way in Rialto, California. This is going to be in LA, but when
Right.
you're a good person and you do the right thing, and it's not about the money, and you made the sacrifices,
That's right.
somebody is always going to have your name in their mouth,
That's right.
which is exactly what happened and how STGN came about. So I ended up doing a celebrity bowling gala, interviewing celebrities, interviewing. I'm like, yeah, right. This is okay. I mean, it was good to see them, and they were friendly, and but in my heart, it's just like, okay, I'm beyond this. It's just something I really did not want to do. And you learn not to tell secrets. You learn to keep your
Right.
mouth closed. And I remember it. I got another one. You want you to do this. We want you to do that. And I remember the fourth time, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go because the first one was fun. And I even had a friend that I would take with me. The very last one that I went to, it was like I was hearing the Lord tell me, do your interviews, pack up your stuff, and leave.
Wow.
And moving forward, that's what I would do. I didn't stay and mingle. I didn't stay and drink. I didn't stay and eat the good shrimp and drink the good champagne. I learned to pack up your stuff and leave.
And
And
then
and people will continue to request you. And so I'm like,
but
okay,
before you go on to the next piece of the story, because you're dropping so much words of wisdom and pearls and nuggets for people to take
really?
away. Absolutely. So that's why you may hear me stop you a little bit to get more clarity. You say, why do you say it was important for you to pack up and leave after you got your job done? Because my listeners this and viewers will definitely get a good takeaway from what you're saying right now.
Okay. So can I be transparent?
I hope that you're not being anything else but transparent.
Okay, so let me pull out the list. Okay, so when you're in the military, you cannot smoke marijuana. Okay, you can't because they randomly drug test. So being from a girl from Tennessee, my father was a pastor. We were already living with restraints where we couldn't wash on Sunday and we couldn't wear nail polish to church. Okay, so you can imagine
Right.
life. And so now I'm doing these celebrity interviews. I've interviewed Kim Whitley, Nia Long, so many. The guy that did, I can't. It's so many of them I can't name
Right,
it.
right, right. The point is, you were interviewing a wide variety of
Yeah,
celebrities, well-known celebrities, not
yeah,
like A-list kind of celebrities type
yeah.
thing. Right.
Uh-huh. And so the first time when I actually went there, you mingle and you see the champagne, you hang around, you don't, California, they smoke weed out there. That's not my thing, okay? And
Okay, y'all, the views expressed, remember, are the views of my guests, not always mine. She's
yeah, yeah.
like they just, it's a bucket list of people.
Oh, see, so that's not my thing. So if I'm sniffing that, I'm like, I'm leaving because I don't really want to smell it.
Right,
But I just started hanging around, staying and staying and staying. So the very last time, I believe that the Lord was telling me, in order to keep your credibility,
right.
if you don't see it, you don't know it, and you won't be tempted to tell it.
Now
uh,
you're telling it on the Kim Jacobs.
yeah, and if you want to maintain that distance and of being professional
Mhm.
and not like everybody else, you have to set those boundaries. And
Yeah.
that's what I did. And before long, I kept doing it and I kept getting requested. Then I started getting emails or text messages. Hey, will you pray for me?
Oh,
I'm like, yeah, I will. Because see, people want to know that you can keep their secrets.
that's right.
And
Yeah.
now you're gonna make Kim, this makeup can't come off now because you're gonna make me passionate because I feel like I want to get a little emotional.
Well, you good.
But
You get as emotional as you want. Let me get my cloth. I got to figure out what my cloth is. Too messing with you, Veronica. But go ahead. I can hear you. I don't even have my
you know,
cloth with you.
you people want to know that you are trustworthy and that you can keep their secrets because people on the inside, they're hurting and they want friends. And even if they don't ever call you and say, hey, let's go have dinner, but if they
Right.
pick up that phone to text you and say, hey, just pray for me, then you have to have yourself in a position of, I'm not going to say purity because none of us are pure, but in a position to where they will receive from you.
That's
And
right.
so that is just following that model allowed me to say, you know what? I'm going to continue with that because my place here is about letting people know that you're loved. If you're hurting, you can tell me, and I won't tell anybody, but I'll take it to the throne. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you, stop whining in it and let's get up and do something about it.
Right. So you're that tough coach, but you also are that compassionate coach. And say,
Yes,
I'm relating to you and I'm understanding that you're having a hard time, but here's how we're gonna get on the other side of it.
right.
Type
That's
of
we're going
thing.
to get to the other side.
Wow.
So in doing that, still now we're going into like 2012. I'm still talking to the guys that
Right.
are like, and finally, when I moved to Atlanta, and I get that call from the VA in 2017, and
Mhm.
I'm like, okay. And they did all these evaluations, and they're like, well, this shouldn't have happened to you. This is what we're going to do. And at the same time, I'm still trying to figure out how am I going to build this television network.
Right.
And so I reached out to the team of these three guys that own these satellites, and I
They've
said,
been
you know
trying
what?
to talk to you since 2012, right?
Yes, the same ones.
The same people. Okay.
People. And I said, you know what? I'm ready to do it.
Okay.
They said, you are? I said, yes, I am. And I said, so let's talk about the numbers. And so another thing when you're negotiating business, you tell people what you want. This is what
Mhm.
I want. This is what I have. Can you work with it?
That's good. So just totally being transparent with what you're able to work with is
Yes,
an important takeaway point for a person and striving to accomplish something way off the grid in business. Because here, Veronica is doing something that's historical, basically. So what she's doing is something that is not just the norm that every day happens as an African American woman owning a broadcasting
yes,
network. So
yes.
go ahead.
I told them, this is what I have. This is what I want. And can you work with it?
Mhm.
And they was like, you know what? We can. They said, this is what they said. They said, do you have any content? Uh-oh, no, I don't. Content, what is that? Because keep in mind, I didn't go to school for this. I went to school for psychology. Content, there's like programming. I was like, oh, no, I don't have any. They said, okay, so we're going to tell you what we're going to do, Veronica. We're going to go ahead and let you sign the agreement. And I did. And of course, I had to pay some money. And they were like, we're going to give you 6 months to get programming. And they
Hmm.
said, we're going to allow you to run it and loop it, run it and loop it. And so for 3 months, I started off, first of all, I had my mother, she had a cooking show called Cooking with Miss J. She is my mom's a really good cook.
Oh,
And so we
wonderful.
would go up to Tennessee, my camera crew, we would drive up to Tennessee and we would film my mother. And then I talked to my sister and her husband. My sister is a professional manifesto. She does these word affirmations. She goes, you got to think in your mind, if you really want it,
Right,
you have
right.
to say this. And so she and her husband had a show. And then I had this one pastor that I knew when I was going through the issues in the military,
Mhm.
Apostle John D. Harris out of Huntsville, Alabama. This is the content I ran for 3 months
Mhm.
over and over and over and over again. And so it was hard because I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell anybody
Right. You try
that
and
we're
keep it a secret, but you need to tell somebody so you can get the content. So it's a catch
right.
22, you know?
Yes. And so I said, I'm not really going to tell anybody
Mm.
that we're on the air and that we've launched because I'm going to get a big audience. And then when they see that I'm running the same thing over and over and over again, I'm going to lose my audience, Kim. Yeah. So I didn't. I ran
Wow.
my mother and my sister, and her husband, and my pastor. Eventually, I had to terminate my mother because I'm like, you know what, Mom? Yes, ma'am. Let me tell you something. If you're trying to have a business and you didn't invest it pretty much,
Oh my gosh, not the mother, not terminating the
yes,
mother.
and she's a good cook because her show was she would, and this might be an idea for somebody if y'all want to do it and you want to send us the content, we'll air it. She would cook the food. She was like, one of her shows was she was frying fish, and while she's frying the fish, she had her two friends sitting at the table.
Right.
He's talking about the scriptures of how Jesus, distributed gave the 2 loaves of bread or the fish and the 2 loaves of bread.
Right, right.
And she's cooking whatever she's talking about. And then when she's done cooking, she and her friend will sit down at the table and they would talk. And my mom's a widow now; she hasn't remarried, but she and one of the ladies that helped her pastor the church, they would sit down and they would finish talking, and she would share the recipe.
That's
And so it was a
awesome.
really good show.
Yes.
But listen here, when you're paying 2 camera ops, you got to pay mileage to drive up to Tennessee.
Right.
Plus, you have to pay for a hotel. Plus, you have to pay for their food. When I get there, why aren't you ready? That's a lot of money.
Well, you know how I feel about being ready. I was like, you saw the situation. I don't care what you have going on. When it's time to be ready, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, you know what? We're not going to keep driving up here every other Saturday. And then I'm paying this money. I still have to pay my camera ops, whether we get footage or not.
That's right. That's right.
And then the same thing eventually with my sister and her husband.
Oh my gosh. No, you didn't have to get rid of the whole family.
I
Lord have
did,
mercy.
ma'am. I did. And I ran Apostle John D. Harris
Oh
on
Lord.
STGN for 3 months straight. And I did that with tears because I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know?
Somebody said in my studio audience, so Cynthia said, oh wow, I couldn't fire my mother.
Yes, you could, girl. If you invest all your money and then they sitting there and not supporting you, you could do it. When you're looking at this much and what you're getting, you would do it.
Oh my goodness. Courtney, my brother says cooking with Miss J. Actually, Miss J is what I call my mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a fabulous cook as well. So cooking with Miss J, man, that sounds good. He said, so that's his mom is Miss Jacobs, but we call her Miss J.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Mrs. J. Great takeaway tips, Veronica. Great show, Kim. Thank you, Courtney, so much for watching. Appreciate your support. Veronica, you are amazing. Kenise says.
Kenise.
Yeah, Kenise Itwara. She said, you are amazing.
Oh, hey, Kenise. Wow.
So how do people get involved in broadcasting? First of all, tell us how you have a historical title. What is that title in the broadcasting world?
A historical title. What is it?
First African American. Anytime it's
Oh
first
yeah, they
anything.
do. These publicists put that out there when they write different things, and I'm like, you know
Oh,
what?
wait. So you're very modest, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
what title? What? I'm like, what, girl? They said according to what I was reading in my talk show research, you are the first African American woman to own this
A
broadcasting,
company. Now
a
that
broadcasting company.
yes, because Oprah owns. Well, she's. Oh well, I don't know who's on here, so I'm gonna keep my secrets to myself. But anyway, we're.
I'm like this. You got me looking too. I'm like, who on
I
here?
can't see anything. I just see me and you. We're a broadcasting company because we have the capability to stop all programming and go live. Oprah owns, well, she was gifted a network through the Discovery Channel. They gave her the funds. I did not have that. I wish someone would give me $1 million and say, Veronica, here you go do what you got to do. I'm telling you. So how a person gets started in broadcasting is something just like this right here. This Facebook Live is a broadcast. And so what I don't know if you're able to keep these in like a file or something, but you could take these broadcasts right here and say, you know what, I'm going to create my own YouTube channel. I'm going to create my own Roku channel. I'm going to send this to STGN49 and ask her if she wants to air it. And that is how. But the thing is, you start with getting that content. Once you get the content, then you got to have the engineers, you got to have the salespeople, you got to have personalities that's willing to come up on the camera and be the brand of your product. And so for me, it took years to do that. And now we're going into our third year. And
Excellent.
I'm like, yeah, this is good. But guess what?
What?
NBC, Fox, CBS, all of these people are now on the Roku platform. I remember when Hulu started out in California, they were like free 30-day free trial, $5. After the 30-day free trial is $5. And you would pay for Hulu and you'd be like, oh, it's not too much on here. And I
Right.
remember with Netflix, when they started out,
Mhm.
it was maybe about 13 shows. And the one that I usually watch all the time, I can't remember it, but it was about the Caucasian guy in the trailer park with the African American guy with the big afro. It's really a weird show, but I really liked it. I can't think of the name of it.
Oh no.
But when you look at these platforms where they are now, they're 90 million billion-dollar companies.
That's right.
And so when I look at STGN, I'm like, you know what? Our goal, first of all, is to continue to be a broadcasting company.
Mhm.
So now that my competitors are occupying my platform, which is Roku
Right.
and all of these other ones, I said I have to re-strategize here.
Mhm.
Now I'm in the air on the satellites. That's great. It's stay up there, stay on Roku. We're not on Apple or what's the other one? Fire Stick.
Fire stick. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm like, we have a plan to this. I said, we're getting on the ground. And so now
Good.
next month, well, let's see, I'm going to say December, but it's really probably going to be November. We're
Okay.
going to STG in Beaumont. We're going to be on so when you go on to a low powered station in Beaumont and
Mhm.
turn to 27, you're going to see STG in 49
Okay.
because my competitors are being greedy like NBC, ABC, Fox, CBS, and saying we're tired of being on the gram. We want to get on the streaming services because that's where people are watching because
Right.
it's
Right.
more cable. So now the wisdom that God has given me is say do the opposite. You got to work backwards. So now we're
Mhm.
working backwards and saying we're going to cover the ground. So for a person that wants to get into broadcasting, you're saying I know how to put the content together
Right.
and I want to be able to get up on the air, then you go to Roku. The thing is, Roku is a good platform to start out on,
Mhm.
but probably about every 3 months, you got to keep meeting those certifications. I mean, you got
Right.
to keep upping it and upping it. And it's okay because at the end of the day, people do watch. We have a very broad audience. I have Our audience is 55% men and 45% women. And I'm like, I need to get more content toward the women, but I like the fact that it's 55% males
Mhm.
And I think that's because they have the horse competition on there.
Right.
We have fishing shows, all the things that guys like to do. We had signed a deal with the American Basketball Association,
Oh, wonderful.
but that was when we first started. That
Mhm.
didn't work out too well because there's certain compliances you have to meet.
Right.
And if you're throwing chairs and you,
If you're doing the Jerry, well, I
yeah.
won't name anybody, but if you're trying to do some serious stuff, it's like, okay, not on this network. Okay, we're not going to do that here. Okay.
So I guess for people that are in business right now, my thing is you got to continue to persevere no matter how hard it gets. And
Right.
you're like, you know what? There's been times, Kim, I've met my payroll and only had $20 left.
And that's normal business. So that's why I like the fact that you're able to come on and be transparent and share with people that, you know what, this is what business
Yeah,
entails. There's not always that you're getting such a plethora overflow. Sometimes you're just making ends meet, but you're still
yeah,
holding on to your business.
yeah. And I found joy in that because when I say, hey, we got an assignment, they're like, okay, great shoot. And when you have a crew that says at the end of the day, this was a great shoot, that means that they enjoy working with you. They know they're going to get paid, and they've been with us for since day one.
Yeah.
One of my camera ops went off to Wisconsin, worked for NBC, and he had STGN on there. And then he said, you know what, I'm moving back south. Can I come back? I'm like, absolutely.
That's good relationships and
Yeah.
having the ability to not burn those bridges. When I was doing my show, Daily Balance with Kim Jacobs, it was on PBS and on the Word Network. And that's when I was interviewing a lot of the celebrity guests. I had like Emmitt Smith, NFL all-time leading rusher, and his wife, Pat Smith, on my show. I've had Dominique Wilkins, Mother Love, with the cooking piece. She was doing the cooking show, all kinds of different guests that came on. And what I would do is actually just film multiple episodes in one day because I was paying all of those people. I was like, we need to get in here, bring a change of outfits. You see how quick I can change, right?
Yeah.
Get a change of clothes and get in here and do multiple episodes. And that's what I was doing, back behind the scenes before, to be able to produce the shows and the content that was needed for PBS and the Word Network. But how do you recommend it be done?
I just like that. We film 4 shows in a day, and we get in and make it work.
Oh,
We get in
good.
there and we make it work. And the main thing is I like to do a lot of briefings before we even start filming.
Good.
And so that when it's time to get in there, nobody is lost. And so now, where we are, we get syndications from CBS.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
we do. But the model, the way STGN is set up, is that we have to produce 50% of our own content.
Okay.
So that's when I was like, you know what? I want to think about what matters to me. And
Yeah.
things that mattered was the social injustice, not just when it comes to racism, but when it comes to politics, when it comes to somebody making $10 an hour and your rent is $1,600 a month. How are
Right.
you going to pay that? So I'm like, you know what? We need to talk about rent control. How are you going to pay $400 a month in auto insurance when you're making $10 an hour, or the minimum wage in your state is $7.75?
Wow.
And that's how I got into becoming a lobbyist.
This
And
is good. This is a
yeah,
good transition because right now, everyone that's watching, we've been talking with Veronica J Woodard, who is first African American female to own her own broadcasting network. And now she also has a passion for helping those be able to excel and understand that your rights matter, who you are matters, and it makes a difference. So she is a lobbyist. And do you think I should take everyone to your page for a second? Because I think that
oh,
would be
you
cool.
can if you can. Uh-huh.
Okay, let me take you to Veronica J Woodard's page because I really fell in love with a couple of things I was seeing on here regarding lobbying, and that's what she's talking about now. Let me go right here where it says, first let me show you the front page because that's the beautiful integrity, innovative, and ideal. Veronica J Woodard. Her passion is lobbying and she's talking about different other things that you'll be able to learn regarding their press and how to contact her and her associates. You'll learn more about her history on her website, and you'll be able to follow her on all of her social. Hey, there's our flyer. You'll be able to follow her on all of her social media outlets, Facebook and Instagram, and learn a lot more about Veronica J Woodard. But I'd like to take you to the lobbying page. And Veronica, if you could talk about that for a moment.
Okay, so when you're a lobbyist, you can either I'm an individual, or you can be represented through a company, or a company will hire you. And basically, what you do, you go before legislation when they're in session, and you try to get them to side with why this bill should or should not be
Right.
passed. One of the ones that I'm actually working on is, okay, so you guys know that Georgia recently passed a hate crime bill.
Right.
So when Miss Ann over here got to reading it, I'm like, what kind of hate crime bill is this? So I pulled the one from every state that I've lived in, Kim. I pulled the one from California. I pulled the one from Tennessee. And I'm reading this, and I said, the Georgia hate crime bill is nothing in comparison to the one in California or the one in Tennessee. And it left out a lot of valuable keywords like civil rights. Because this is, you guys know, when that gentleman was jogging down there in South Georgia, and
yes, Ahmaud Arbery.
Right. So even if they were to prosecute those gentlemen who killed him and say that it was a hate crime, the hate crime bill that's in place in Georgia right now, that was just released probably about 2 or 3 months ago, they would walk.
Wow.
I was so upset about that, and I read it, and I called the author of it, which is Chuck Effistration. And I was talking to him. He goes, well, I could tell you're upset. I'm like, absolutely. It's a slap in the face to the African American community.
Wow.
And so tonight I'm going to read that bill when we do our show. But the thing is that it never mentions civil rights. It's really one-sided. And I told him, I said, and you know what? The thing about this bill, Chuck, it doesn't even protect the Caucasian race. He was like, well, what do you mean? I said, you have this bill so one-sided that you left off your race. And he said, well, what would you like to see in it? And I said, well, you know what? Let me get it all together. So I pulled a little bit from the California law, pulled a little bit from Tennessee. I even pulled a little bit from Wisconsin. I don't know why I went there, because I've never been there before. And I'm like, these are things he told me to get all these key points together and bring them, email them over to him, and he will make the necessary changes.
And he's going to present and make those changes based on you being the lobbyist. So who are lobbyists, and what can they do? And what you have here, the definition on your website, as far as being able to influence legislation, regulation, government decisions and actions. But who can become a lobbyist, Veronica?
Anybody, you, me, your audience. And I want them to become an audience. And let me explain to you why. Okay. Because right now in Tennessee, they have put a bill in place that says if you are protesting in the state of Tennessee, you're going to lose your voters' rights. This is yes, the governor did that because, in Tennessee, they burned down one of the Capitol buildings, one of the courthouses. And so what they're not realizing, there are peaceful protesters, but you do have the protesters who fight and the ones that just out there for some other reason.
Right.
But in Tennessee, that governor said, moving forward, this is going to become a law that if you are protesting, you're going to lose your voters' rights. That is illegal for them to do that. So what I've been trying to tell people in Tennessee, my family, but they don't listen because they busy, they work a lot up there. And when I go up there, I think I'm lazy when I go, because I'm like, how many jobs y'all got up here? Everybody.
Well, they're probably like, Veronica, everybody don't have a broadcasting network.
But still, I'm like, you guys have to sit still and look at these laws, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself in a position. You're a peaceful protester, so why should you lose your voting rights? Right. Because you're protesting. And so anybody can become a lobbyist. So what you do, when they make the information very hard to find.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is not easy information that you're just saying it generally and it's perfect. but people need to know who to be connected to and how to become a lobbyist. And do you have tools to teach people how to do that?
Yes, we can. If they want to do that, they can go to the contact page on our website
Okay.
and they can become a part of the associates. That's Veronica J Woodard of Associates, because what you do, you go to your state and you find they make it hard to find on the state website.
Right.
But the reason why I feel that it's important for people to become a lobbyist, especially for, I'm just going to be a little bit segmented right now. I'm going to say the African American community. Okay.
Okay.
The reason why I want to be segmented is because, first of all, when the laws were written, they were not written for our ancestors or for
Okay.
us. Okay. Because our ancestors were still enslaved. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When the laws were changed, with the 13th Amendment giving us, I think, the right to vote, I think it was the 13th Amendment, they were still skewed because a lot of our ancestors or a lot of African Americans were killed or lynched and done all these things done to them because they wanted to vote. So when you look at the laws today and you're saying, you know what, I have a problem, let's say rent control,
Mm-hmm.
for somebody making $12 an hour. At the end of the week, they're going to have $480 a week, and then they have to take out the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look around, they're still building apartments, 16, 17, 18, 19, $2,000 a month. Who
Right.
pays $2,000 a month for an apartment? But
Right.
people
Right.
do.
That's
So
right.
if you want to become a lobbyist, you say, you know what, I'm going to go and connect with my state representative first. So you find
Mm-hmm.
out what district you're in and say, hey, I'm in District 48. And you go reach out to that state rep in District 48 and says, hey, you know what? This is a problem that I have. The minimum wage is $7.75. Warehouse jobs usually pay between $10 to $12 an hour.
Right.
But you have an apartment building, all the apartments in my area are $1,900 a month. Where are we supposed to live if we don't put rent control in place? And so that's why I say it's important to vote at the local level, because when you're dealing with these local politicians,
Right.
you're seeing how they operate.
And
So
they tell you their platforms, but if you don't know what the platform is because you're not learning about the local officials and all you're only concerned about is the presidential candidate,
yeah,
then it's making you're making a grave error, because the ones that put those policies in place and execute on those policies are your local officials.
the local officials. So
Yeah.
you tell them, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to lobby. I'm going to get 2,500 names that's going to support me. And then when your legislative session opens up, you're able to walk in there and be in front of that, the Senate or the legislations in your state, and you're presenting your case, because you have to look at rent control. And so that's why my platform is all about the quality of life, because I've been homeless on the streets of Los Angeles in
Wow.
between trying to figure out this television thing and working. You lose your job, you become homeless. And I wasn't just homeless with myself, I was homeless with my, I
Your
think,
girls.
with only one, because the other one had already went off to college. But my youngest one, which is now 19, I think she was maybe 13 or 14. And
Wow.
I'm like, you go into a place of sunkenness, like, what am I going to do between living in your car or living in your office or staying in a Motel 6? What exactly am I going to do? And I didn't understand that. And I'm like, that was the first time I saw a man eating out of the trash can.
Mm.
And I'm like, God, what is going on? Why am I homeless? I have a degree. Uh, I'm smart. Why am I homeless?
Wow.
And so when I look at the quality of life, it's like people become homeless because if they lose their job, which was my case, you lose your income.
That's right.
You have to wait 30 days before unemployment kicks in, and you have to pay your rent. And if you're not able to pay after, like, they usually give you like 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
you have to leave. And by the time you have something that's $1,800 plus the fees, you're at
Right.
$1,000. And you're like, well, you know what, let me just go put my stuff in storage, and we're gonna have to sleep in my office and figure it out. And for 6 months, Kim, that was my life. And I saw how people get on drugs. I saw how people go into prostitution,
Yeah,
put their children into
that's
prostitution.
right. And you see where hopelessness comes into
Yeah.
play, because a lot of times people don't realize that it's like only by the grace of God are we one situation from being in that same circumstance. And that's something I actually learned of that a lot whenever my son passed away. I never could understand why a person would consider taking their own lives, and
Mm.
what would make a person. And even the day before my son passed away, I actually, at a Bible study, the topic was on suicide.
Mm.
And I just don't understand. If somebody say I ever killed myself, even to this day, if somebody say I killed myself, I did not. Y'all investigated. But I'm saying I do have a compassion now
Yes.
of understanding why someone would say enough is enough, even
Yeah.
though I still ask God to bless them and to give
Mhm.
them the help that they need. But I can understand, and I have compassion for why a person feels that they've lost all hope, you know?
Right. Yeah. And even when I was in that sunken place being homeless
Hmm.
with my daughter, I felt I didn't want to commit suicide, but I said, you know what? Maybe I should go check myself in a mental hospital. Maybe because you're in a place like, how did I get here?
Right.
How did I get here?
Like, all of this is happening that's been
And
stuff
I
that
got my
you
kid. How did I get here? And so I would always have that hope in the Lord, feeling that He's going to bring me out. And what He told me was, I had to humble you. Keep in mind, I STGN is back here now in my head.
right, right,
And as a matter of fact, we didn't even have a name for STGN. The thought of me owning the broadcasting station was back in my head because
right.
I'm in LA, I'm on the streets of Los Angeles with my child, and I'm not thinking about television. And so he told me, he said, I have to humble you. And he had to humble me because I always thought that people were homeless because they were on drugs. It was, they were this and on that. And he did humble me. And now when I look at where I am, I'm like, you know what? I don't need this type of car. I can be modest. I can be loving. I can be warm to people.
Yes.
I have to feel like I'm something great when I'm not.
Mm-mm. I don't believe anybody is better than anybody else in
Yeah.
life. And we all have just different circumstances and situations that happen that put us in a certain light. But nobody's better than anyone else. And I just wholeheartedly believe that, you know? That's what, again, one of the reasons I'm doing this show is because I want people to know that no matter what their circumstances, no matter what the
Yes.
situation, no matter what we face, what we encounter, it's real, it's relevant, it's relatable content on here that can help you get to the other side of your journey as you balance your life. And that's important to me.
Amen. And one thing about suicide, and this is what, when I talk to people who have said, "Hey, I feel like I want it," because I put my number out there. You call me anytime. I'm gonna pray for you because I love people. It's hard for people to love me though, but I
Well, we love you here on the Kim Jacobs Show, so you can come back anytime you want. And my energy level is probably not mirroring what it normally is on my own show, because I've had one of my really good friends passed away this past weekend, and she has 4 children that
oh
are
yeah,
my children's ages and stuff. It's just a lot. Even though I know she's in heaven, I'm just disappointed that God, that she just won't see her children grow up on this earth, And
right,
so I'm just, that's so. But I didn't want, and honoring commitments, Veronica. I had already had all
yeah,
of my guests lined up for
mhm,
this week, and I refused to cancel the shows. I wanted to honor my commitment and honor my word, which was have you as my guest, and each of you all this week as my guest. But next week,
yeah,
everybody already knows I'm going to be taking off next week. So there will not be any shows aired on next week. I've had hundreds upon hundreds. So when you speak of content, hundreds upon hundreds of shows that I have lots of great content. People, Redemption of the Black Man, where
ooh,
they talking to panelists of police and African American men, all kinds of people, mental health, how to care for your aging parent, if they're dealing with Alzheimer's, and all kinds of guests have been gracing this stage over the last years. So, Veronica, what's your phone number?
it's 470.
And you said you want to put this out, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, for prayer, because we don't want anybody dealing with suicide. Let me say something briefly about that because I know you got to end, Kim. Um, one of the things that came to me about suicide is if anyone on this that's listening is saying, you know what, I'm done, I can't take it. Think about it, because that life that you are contemplating taking is not yours. That life belongs to God. And when you decide or even attempt to take that life, you are stealing that life from God. That life belongs to your coworkers, your family members, your friends, your children, your grandchildren. You're indebted to God. That life belongs to Him. And He said, and I'm telling you this because I had to minister to somebody, if you take that life, you will be held accountable because it is not yours. You are stealing it. And what we have to do is get connected with one another and say, you know what? Let's stop being fake. This is fake, but in here it's not fake. And let's love one another. We don't care. I've learned how to meet people where they are from living on the streets of Los Angeles, from starting a network and having to do it by myself, sometimes at 3 in the morning, sometimes to just crying my eyes out. God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So my number for anybody, I don't care what time it is, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5, I will pray with you and I will love on you because I love people.
I can tell you do. And that's a blessing from God. That's a gift from God, actually. 470
424 5926.
And I told you this time would go quick, didn't I?
Yes, we're going to have to talk again because we need to talk about putting those shows on STGN. If you have them, we need to get some numbers together. We would love, because this is great. This is how it starts, Kim. I had no idea you was at the War Network, though.
Yes, I was there for a few years, and I'm the balance expert on NBC, Charlotte Today show for a few years as well. I did balance makeovers by going into people's homes and assessing their family situations and providing them with a extreme balance makeover. And I wrote a book about it as well, Extreme Balance Makeover.
Oh, okay. Wow, awesome.
Yep. So we'll talk offline too. So don't go anywhere because I'll share with you how the after party works. Let me share, and you're going to close the show out today. So just stay tight for a second. I have to do a few announcements and housekeeping things, and make sure my audience will be very upset if I don't acknowledge their comments. They'll be like, I know just because some Veronica was on today, you didn't forget about this flash round. Okay, so let me go. Lisa Graham Dixon says society tries to set us up for failure. Balance is our answer. Great show, Kim. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for tuning in and being so supportive. Bill Kinney says, very good, Kim. Okay, thank you, Bill Kinney. I appreciate it. My mom was on today and she said, good morning, ladies. Lots of good information. Thank you, Mommy. Okay, somebody said about firing the mom. Okay, and then Cynthia said, even though she wouldn't necessarily fire her mom, she said, but family will take you for granted, though. Yes. All right, and then you've heard some of the other comments earlier as well. So listen, today's episode is sponsored by StartMyTruckingCompany.com. Again, StartMyTruckingCompany.com. StartMyTruckingCompany.com is basically a trucking business in a box. Is a trucking business to go. Everything that you need to know from A to Z to start your own trucking company, you can find it right here at StartMyTruckingCompany.com. The phone number is 214-699-5009. And info@startmytruckingcompany.com is the email. info@startmytruckingcompany.com. You'll learn things like how to have your trucking company business plan, everything that you need to know about the industry, even starting call centers to prepare for your routes, as well as international trucking routes as well. And the founder and CEO has over 30 years of experience. So remember to contact StartMyTruckingCompany.com 214-699-5009 and let them know that the Kim Jacobs Show did send you. And so that's today's episode sponsor. Make sure you also know that you can go and be a part of the Quest Church prayer line. And I need that information as well, everyone. And then I'll be able to, I have people on the back office helping me type everything up. So make sure you also know that you can support the Kim Jacobs Show and become a Patreon member. The Patreon is patreon.com/the Kim Jacobs Show. If you become a member, you get to hear after party content. That's where Veronica's going to be in a few minutes.
Yay.
We're going to the after party, okay? And the after party is stuff that you don't get to hear on the show. So become a Patreon member today. And then I also need the Quest Church, okay, the Quest Church prayer line, and that's 978 990. I'm going to put that up for you guys, 5,000. Access code is 3. Yes, access code is 322-083 #. That's from 12 to 12:30 Monday through Friday. And that's Pastor Jacobs is praying for people that are impacted with COVID-19, the wildfires, protesting, you name it. It's so much happening in our world, in our country. We need prayer. So please be a part of the prayer line, 978 990 5000. Access code is 322-083 #. Woo! If you haven't subscribed to the Kim Jacobs Show, Veronica, would you please be kind enough to tell them to subscribe to the Kim Jacobs Show, please?
Please subscribe to the Kim Jacobs Show. You have a world of knowledge. This is awesome.
Oh, thank you so
One of
much.
my best interviews ever, honestly.
Wait. I was talking. What'd you say?
One of my best interviews ever, honestly.
Oh,
One of the best. Yes. I feel so free.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I'm not even being my normal self today, believe it or not. So, okay. I'm so glad that each of you tuned in, and make sure you subscribe. You can go right to my YouTube channel, turn on your notifications, hit that notification bell to all. And guess what? Then you'll be alerted when we go live. Tomorrow, my guest is going to be Soné. Now, Soné, he is going to talk about, it's pretty much an anthem for all of those that still have hope. And you definitely don't want to miss tomorrow's episode at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Thursday, I have Mr. I'm just going to tell you, the author of Get the HELL Out of Your Own Way. He's going to be talking about how to get out of your own way in life and overcoming these life obstacles at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. And then, Friday is Freestyle Friday. We talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Whatever topic comes to your mind, you send me the information, we talk about it. Even the person that wanted to talk about the that vagina stuff last week. It's okay. It's okay. It's your topic. So whether I'm comfortable with the topics or not, we discuss them. And it's Freestyle Friday on Friday here on the Kim Jacobs Show. So what's any last thing you want to say to the studio audience, Veronica?
I want you guys to be encouraged. Keep your head up. Don't get sidetracked by what's happening with the politics and the political. Work on your business, because at the end of the day, when COVID comes back, and it is, because it ain't ever left,
Right.
you're going to set up to where you're not going to have to worry about anything. So focus on your business. Focus on building your business and bringing in that extra income and putting it away, so that in the event that this does happen again, and it is, that you won't be out in the cold or wondering. That's really where I am right now, is just really putting myself as well as people around me in a position to say, okay, we don't care, we're good, so let's help somebody else.
That's good. Focus on building your business so we're prepared for that rainy day.
Yes.
That's going to be important, because those rainy days clearly come. Focus on building your business. You heard it right from Veronica J Woodard. If you want to connect with Veronica, make sure you go to veronicajwoodard.com. And if you're interested in learning more about the lobbying, just /lobbying as well. So veronicajwoodard.com. And if you want to learn more about lobbying in particular, /lobbying. And let me give you her phone number again as well, which I think is important. Is anytime someone is offering you the opportunity to not count it all out and call it quits in life, and saying that you can call them any time of the day or night, take advantage of that, because you never know who is the voice that's going to help you be able to recognize your gifts and your talents. Her phone number is 470-424-5926, 470-424-5926. Well, that's today's episode of the Kim Jacobs Show. And Veronica, you have been a tremendous guest. Thank you. I just think God has a sense of humor, because he knew the kinds of guests I needed this particular week because he already foreknew and predestined that my friend was going to pass away. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to be any good to anybody this week. And here is guests like you that came on, a guest like the pastor that came on, Pastor Barnes came on yesterday. I have like this great lineup of guests this week, and God knew. So thank you. Thank you for being my special guest today.
Oh, wow. Awesome. You are quite welcome.
Okay, everybody, before I get too emotional and start crying on the show, I'm definitely going to close out in honor of my friend. I'm going to remove me and you from the screen, Veronica. And before you guys disconnect, I just would like you to see my beautiful friend and say a word of prayer for her and her family.